Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Well, we summer is kind of unofficially here today in Phoenix. We hit 90 degrees for the first time this year, 2025, and I had a big fear about this summer. And you got to understand why by thinking about what happened last summer. Last summer, it got as high as 115 degrees. And during that time, I got sick twice, actually. First, I got long COVID. I had gotten a really bad case of long COVID, loss of appetite, dizziness, vomiting. I had recovered from that, but then I was working with a pewter alloy and got significantly poisoned. I don't know why. It was probably a bad batch that I bought from China. And during that time, I was all alone. I wasn't dating anybody. I didn't have a whole lot of connections here. And I was scared to death. You got to understand, a lot of my viewers are older. I know that because I can see the demographics. But when you're single, and especially if you're like me and you don't live in a big mansion or anything like that, you got to go out and have all sorts of, you have to pick up all sorts of supplies. There's all sorts of errands to run. And when it's hot out there, everything becomes massively confusing fast. I don't know how many of my viewers can understand that. I think most of my viewers are at least 50 years old, judging from the feedback here. And my big fear was repeating last summer, and that's why I wanted to meet somebody. And I've done that very well, and I'm not so fearful anymore. And so something interesting happened during my journey, though. So last fall, we had just made it through the summer, right? 115. I just recovered from long COVID, and then I recovered from the lead poisoning or whatever metal poisoning it was. I don't know. And I was scared to death. And then one day I was browsing my social media, Facebook, and I recognized an old classmate of mine that I could relate to, and he and I share a lot of similarities, except for the fact that he's married, right? Similar degrees, similar career paths today. And I asked myself, and I told myself to be as honest as possible, how much money it would be worth to trade places with him from the point of view of marital status, keeping everything else constant, right? And when I thought it through, you got to understand what I have. When I thought it through, I thought a fair value was about $100,000. Now, some people might say it's a lot more, but that's what I would trade at the time, because you got to understand my personal finances as well, right? And then I Googled another number. I asked Google, how many people does the average American have to date before they typically end up either in a long-term relationship or being married? I saw a few numbers. When I averaged it, it was about 30. So I took 100,000 divided by 30, and I thought that's how much I could afford to spend to get it involved in one blind date. And I decided to offer a reward. And at the time, I wanted to get people involved in investing in precious metals as well. So I offered a 1 kilogram silver bar as a reward. At the time, it was worth about $700-800. But I thought that would give me room to add to the reward if there were no takers, right? And I went to my regular meetup groups and I talked about it. I offered it to, I told my colleagues about it one day at lunch. And so at the time, everybody made fun of me. Didn't tell my students, but word made it to them. And so one of them thought it was the funniest joke in the world. The funny thing is he has had to eat his words, and now he won't talk to me at all, which is fine. I have better people to talk to than him anyway. But I eventually added a few other things to the reward. A bunch of my art pieces, including bismuth, and some of the Mondrian art squares as well, and then a friend that I had at church set me up on a blind date. Now, what happened there? Did it hit the sparks? Are we going to get married? Probably not. but I made a close friend, and I made a friend of a friend who helped me get into a room closer to where I'm working. Right, I live with roommates and a few other but there was something else that it bought that cannot be easily quantified. You see, once I got that first blind date under my belt, that was the first date I went in a little bit over 2 years. It was so much easier to ask other people out because I wasn't desperate anymore. I was at my grandmother's funeral in Taiwan, and so I asked a girl out over there, and I came home and I met another girl in Houston, and then a few more locally, and then I went to the student union and actually met a student, and and a few other ones. I asked a girl out that I knew from a trivia group as well. And so I probably wouldn't have done any of that had I not had the situation from the guy at the church. And then there was another middle aged guy that I knew at another. It's an Asian cultural meetup. He also set me up on another blind date, and then there were a few other smaller rewards that I gave later on after I. Had the engine going. So altogether, I gave about $4,000. But looking back at it, even if I had to spend $20,000 to get to where I am today, it would have still been worth it. And you got to remember, once I do meet that somebody, just the conveniences and somebody to take care of me the next time I have COVID-19 heat wave, right? It will easily pay for itself, like almost immediately, right? Not to mention the courage, and it's not even just dating courage. I find that ever since I've had all this under my belt, when I go to work and I need to negotiate something, it spills right out, right? When you're regularly asking girls out on dates, all of a sudden asking, hey, can I, like for example, our offices, so the electrical outlets are in weird places. Do you have some extension cords? That flows right out of your mouth, right? Can you help me move this piece of furniture? That flows right out, right? Can I have this vacation day? It flows right out, right? It is so weird. That was the best money I ever spent. If all I got was the ability to ask for a vacation day here and there, oh my God, that was $4,000 well spent, right? And a lot of people don't understand that. Even that student who laughed at me, he probably still doesn't understand this logic to this day. And today it's 90 degrees and I'm no longer scared to death, right? Uh, for one thing, even if I don't meet the right person before it's 110 degrees, I have quite a few people I can pick up the phone and call. Hey, would you mind bringing me over? Whatever, right? I'm in a much better position to do that today than I was a year ago. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.